there, it's Sandee Sgarlata. Get ready to dive deep into incredible stories of people who've taken life's challenges and turned them into a roadmap to happiness. On this show, we're not just talking about overcoming obstacles. We're uncovering the real, gritty secrets to living a life filled with peace, joy, and genuine happiness. This is Happiness Solved. So let's get started, because happiness is a choice, and the choice is yours. Liz Bentley, such an honor and pleasure to have you on today. How's everything going?
Great. It's going really well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, this is such an honor. You have such an amazing career. And I think when we first had our call, I was like, oh my gosh, like looking at your website and just everything you've done. It's just like, you're kind of who I want to be when I grow up, right?
Well, that's very generous and kind. So thank you very much.
So for the audience, I
want to be at when I grow up.
You want to what?
I don't even know who I want to be at when I grow up. I'm still on the journey.
It's so true. It's so true. But for the audience, I'm here today with Liz Bentley. She's the founder and president of Liz Bentley Associates. It's a consulting firm specializing in leadership development programs, but she's a nationally recognized keynote speaker and executive coach to some of the top leaders and teams across a broad range of industries. And we're here today because you are a former athlete, and I love speaking with athletes. And you were a D1 lacrosse and soccer player at the University of Virginia, my home state. Yes, yes. And I love some of the things you've been doing, but want to dive into all of that. But can you just tell me a little bit about your journey going from the college athletics into the corporate world?
Yeah. So when you're, being an athlete is something you start at a really young age, and you get trained as an athlete, and in order to even play D1 anywhere, you're usually taking it pretty seriously at a very young age. And in my era, soccer was a sport that that had a lot of Olympic development programs and programs you could start very, very early on. So I think one of the things that had the biggest impact on me as a person that I brought through my entire life was learning how to compete and learning how to take feedback and learning wins and losses, learning, making teams, not making teams, being the star of the team, being on the bench, building up. Sometimes I'd get brought up to teams where I was a year, like I'd be maybe one of the stronger players in my year. So they bring me up to the next year. And then I'd be more in the middle or the bottom and trying to figure out how to get in. So and then also I learned a lot. I played a lot of tennis when I was young. I learned a lot of focus from tennis, because in tennis, it's just you and the opponent. So you have to learn, if you make a really dumb mistake, you got to get right back in that point, or you're going to make a lot of dumb mistakes again. And, I lost plenty of matches because of one dumb mistake that turned into 10. And so I only played tennis until 7th grade, but those are very fundamental years. Mm-hmm. And a lot of different coaches that along the way that taught me so much about, again, about feedback, about shifting, about motivation, about doing hard things, about mental discipline and physical discipline, and just showing up for yourself. And there were a lot of gifts. And we had a coach one time when we were maybe in 8th grade, a bunch of girls, and we were playing on the New York State team. And he told us we weren't allowed to give each other a compliment unless it was really good, because some girl said that was a great shot. And he said, no, that was a terrible shot. You're never allowed to say anything nice to each other unless you mean it, unless it's true. And we just were learning really important values and things right from a very early age. So I think all of that translates to the corporate world. And I saw it right away, right from the beginning. I was working at CBS with all these guys, and I could handle the feedback from the executives and they couldn't, and I saw it right away translating. And so it was really, it's been a huge gift. Sports has been a really big gift in my life.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I was watching on your website, you have a video where you just talk about your journey. And we have a lot of crossovers in our life. I too was raised with 3 brothers. Except my youngest, the youngest one, he was 7 years younger than me.
Yeah.
And I say that all the time because I find myself, especially in corporate, where you're surrounded with men, and I'm like, I was raised with 3 brothers. I'm used to being beat up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was one of the boys. Yeah.
Yeah. I always say being raised with three brothers is like being raised in a pack of dogs. Like I was raised like out in the wild with like a pack of dogs. And it was like, it was like survive or not. And I remember, like all the time my brothers would be having football games in our backyard. And I was significantly younger. My oldest brother's 10 years older than me, then 8 and the 5. And I would always want to go out and play. And I'd go out and play. And then I'd come in crying. And my mom would always say to me, you don't have to go out there. And I would say, yes, I do. I have to go back out because all the fun's happening out there. Nothing fun is happening in here in the kitchen. It was like survival.
Right, right. I love that you say today you play tennis and ice hockey.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm obsessed with tennis. Unfortunately, I was not handed a tennis racket when I was a kid, or I would have loved to have taken that route. It would have been much more successful than figure skating. But I got into figure skating because I wanted to play ice hockey, but this was in the 70s and girls didn't play ice hockey back then.
Yeah.
And I wasn't allowed. They're like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so well, do you play ice hockey today?
So I actually, because I had my three brothers, and they were all played ice hockey. When I was young, I said I wanted to play ice hockey, and they said I wasn't allowed. And I said I still want to play ice hockey. And so my parents let me petition the board at our skating club, and I was the first girl ice hockey player. And then after that, other girls followed, and that was when I was in 4th grade. So that was in the 70s. And turning into the 80s, and then by the time I was in high school, there was a girls team, and so and I was very lucky because my parents were on board with being a rebel. They could have just said no. I mean, I was too young to go petition the board on my own, and they said, okay, if you really want to do this, we can look deeper into it. So there is ice hockey teams, then I stopped for a long time, and then I've played, out here. I don't play quite as much as I used to. Now I'm playing a lot of paddle tennis and pickleball too. I've extended my racket sports to 3 racket sports. So, but it's really fun. And I love team sports. So playing ice hockey has been so much fun.
Yeah. See, I never played team sports. I think I did one season of softball, because my brothers all played baseball as well.
Yeah.
So now that I'm playing competitive tennis and you're just playing with one other person, like it's been really helpful for me because I feel like I've never been a very good team player.
It's very hard to go from being an individual player to a team player. It's very tricky. It's very hard. And it can be a little intimidating. Even one is like, you like owning all of it yourself. You're like, if I make the mistake, it's on me. And if I don't,
That's right.
But then, like, if you make a mistake, you can feel bad because you made the mistake and your partner's here. But then you can be mad at your partner if they make a mistake. So it's complicated. Team sports are complicated. The rest of us like team sports because we like other people making a mistake and not having the spotlight on us all the time. We like to pass the ball. See, that's what I
have to admit it does.
We like distributing the mistakes around the team. So that's why team players, love teams. They like,
Yeah. And I find it kind of, it feels good when I am playing in a tennis match and my partner makes a mistake and we lose a point. I'm like, okay, that wasn't my fault.
Right. It's like I said. So like if you've been in a team for so many years, you're so used to it. You're always, you used to have others making the mistake and you making the mistake. And, the hard thing about a team sport when you're in some arenas is if you're taking the penalty shot, the game is on you. You're taking the foul shot, the game is on you. That takes a unique person because that's a lot of high pressure.
Yeah. It's like the kicker about to make a field goal to win the game, and they don't win, and you just sit there and you're like, oh, like you can just, as an athlete, like when you see that on television, or that you just feel like how hard that is and the pain that they're feeling. All right, so great transition. So you played D1 lacrosse and soccer. How did you handle the pressure of playing 2 demanding sports at such a high level? Because it
was definitely a different time. I mean, a lot of people were playing 2 sports at that time. And I feel like, so it wasn't like it is today. I mean, honestly, it was, and lacrosse also, I would say, was very different than it is today because it was more underdeveloped. I mean, we had people who were just
Right.
like on the field hockey team or coming over and picking it up. So even though, I mean, we were very good and it was still intense, it was just a very different time for sports. Having said that, like the soccer was actually pretty intense because that was a much more developed sport. But I
Right.
mean, it's a pretty grueling schedule. I mean, it's almost impossible to do it in today's world, although there are a handful of people who do it. But it is, you definitely have to be really organized and stay on top of things. And I think it just helps you. I mean, I struggled with it too. I mean, my first year, my grades weren't great. I was trying to like figure it all out and manage my time. You're learning as you go along so much, so it definitely is. um but it helps you, again, like all those fundament, like you end up in sports taking away all the other fundamentals, learning how to organize your time, learning how to create priorities, learning how to really structure and carve out the hours of your day. And so you just like, whereas students, they have so much more free time, so it's you just learn a lot of really good skills that you take off into life.
Nice. Yeah, so true. It really is. And I feel like, and part of the reason why I wanted to start this second podcast and television show is because of that, right?
Mm.
I really believe that sports is such a great entryway into the corporate world because of all of those life skills that you're not learning. They're not teaching this stuff in schools, you know?
Right. Oh
You
yeah.
don't learn any of
No
that.
question. I mean, it's really so many problems I see in corporate America because of people who didn't get those skills early on. And a lot of parents who don't have it really don't teach their kids how to handle feedback, how to roll with the punches, even then they're in sporting environments. The parents are way too involved now. I mean, there's so many things so many of the gifts that we got from our generation of sports are getting lost.
Yeah,
I've
there's
talked about it a lot with kids sports. It's really, it's too bad,
yeah, yeah, for sure. So, can you share a time when you felt like really mentally or physically exhausted and how you pushed through that when you were in competing in sports? Because that's another thing I think that, especially in today's world, it's very different. And I don't know that that work ethic is necessarily taught today like it used to be.
It's funny. I can think a lot about in my business doing that a lot. Actually, like for example, during COVID, I got started getting booked hour after hour after hour and every single day. And before that, I'd be booked for hours. My whole calendar would be booked, but I'd travel, so I'd have much more organic breaks. And people were needing help into the night, and I was mentally just so exhausted. And I knew that I just needed to build the brain power and muscle. So, just like building your physical muscles, I just knew I had to keep doing the reps, and then the brain power would come with it, and then I'd sustain. And it happened. And then that was like my schedule for the rest of my career has been like back to back since COVID. Um, but in the physical, so if I think about, I mean, they're games, games we had where, we won a state championship in high school where it was freezing cold and snowing and raining and everybody was
Oh,
dropping because of hypothermia. We went into overtime and I scored I scored a goal and it was 1-0. And then and then they scored and we went into overtime. And it was one of those team environments where it was like, oh my God, and like the best players were dropping. And I very significantly remember thinking, I have to, I have to do this because it's just, no one can do it right now. And it's going to have to be me. And I'm going to have to figure out how to do it. And I'm freezing and I feel terrible. And I just visualized this goal and then I made it come to fruition and it happened. And it was the first time that school ever won the states. It was a big celebration, but, and that wasn't just exhausting. That was like physically exhausting because of the weather elements were so extreme. But there were definitely, I mean, times throughout college and other times playing on, I played on a couple teams that, were very good, and we won the nationals with one of our teams, soccer, where it was, you're so spent from doing all of it, doing all of the practices and all the lifts and all of the school and all of the travel and all of just so many conditions. But it's funny, like when I look at it now, I remember more of my current life having that, like raising kids and
Yeah.
running a business and, not getting sleep and having to, you know, just do it all, like give presentations and get on stage and get on a plane and prep and, work around the clock and and then be under all the pressure to get it all done, and then get home and get to the play and make the dinner and and coach your kid, do what you're doing for all your clients and do that for your kid, and steer their life and make sure you're on top of their humanity, and that being emotionally exhausting, physically exhausting,
Yeah.
intellectually exhausting, so much even more exhausting than sports, because sports was physical and mental, but like I guess it's emotional too. But
Yeah.
it feels like the stakes are so much higher as an adult than as an athlete, right? Because as an
Yeah.
athlete, it's a sport, but now it's life.
Yeah.
Now the stakes are a lot higher because this is life,
Yeah.
and sports are just sports. I mean, they're great, but they're just sports, right? I mean,
Right.
I'm not making, it's not like, if maybe I feel differently if I was an NBA player with a, $80 million contract.
Yeah.
Maybe I would say
Probably.
this is life too, right? But I
Right.
think for me, it's more about, and it was also so long ago, but I also feel like for me, it's more about how sports is translated to everything else. That
Right.
that foundation was so unbelievable, you know?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Is there any experience that you went through physically and mentally where that is like the one thing that you fall back on when you're faced with some sort of challenge in front of you, and we all have moments of confidence, lack of
Hmm.
confidence.
Hmm.
Is what was that one thing, or is there one thing that you can look back at and say, I did that. I did that. I know
Oh
I can
yeah.
accomplish this.
Well, there's something. I mean, thankfully there have been a number of things that I felt like gave me wins in athletics in my career, in my life, that really gave me confidence. But I'm gonna tell you this one thing that happened to me that was significant and changed my life, and I've harkened back to it many, many, many times. When I was young, and I remember I'm harkening to things that were young because those imprinting years, those time in your life, really create a
Yes.
blueprint for the rest of your life. So the imprinting years stop at the age of 10. And this was probably more like age 12 or 13. So it was later, but it still was very fundamental. I was at a regional camp. I think it was at one of the Olympic development camps. And there was a coach there who was very well known and pretty famous coach. And at the end of the camp, I overheard him basically saying that I did not have what it took. I was not athletic enough. I was not he didn't really see me having a big future, and, I just didn't have it to. And I went home that year and I was devastated. And I told my local coach, and he said, you can't listen to that. That's crazy. You're amazing, blah, blah, blah. And the whole year, it just like ran through my head like a drum beat. And I played so hard and I practiced so hard, and I would like try to combat it, but it just kept running in my head. I was a kid. I mean, I was really young.
Yeah.
So the next year I came back to that camp, and I was invited back, and I played again. And at the end of that camp that year, he said I was one of the most talented athletes he'd ever seen. And it was a
Wow.
gift, because what I learned from that gift is that no one was going to decide my future ever. So it wasn't that I was so happy that he thought I was great. Is that what I
Yeah.
learned was he's just a person with an opinion. And there are going to be people my whole life with opinions, but all that matters is this opinion. That's it. So I was like, okay, like that. And it was one of the most significant learnings of my life. And that gave me from a very early age, which is such a wake up call. I just never forget when I heard him say it. I was
Yeah.
sure I was happy that he said it, but I was like, right, you're just a man with an opinion, and that's all you are.
Well,
And your
thank
opinion
goodness
is
that you
what?
got that.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. And I remembered it for the rest of my life. And I always would remember it. And it gave me a tremendous amount of confidence because I thought, look, at the end of the day, the only person I face is the person in the mirror. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the only person I face. I also remember some other significant things that were like very turning. Like coaches, I remember this one coach who knew me so well. And he could always tell like when I was at my best or when I was at like good enough. And if I went into a game, I could score, I might be exaggerating, 5 goals, and he might say to me, that was only good enough. You were only at your good enough. And I would be like, he's right. Like that, like I made it all look good. But like that was just, and it really also made me always recognize where that gap was between me being giving it my all versus just doing what needed to be done. And that they were just these very important mentorship moments that were really changing and saying that are really fundamental and making you show up because at the end of the day all you're doing is showing up to you, and 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 every time you walk on the field and every time you walk on the court and every time you walk into these circumstances you're just showing up to you. And so those things were really really changing in my life. I'm trying to think about also physical, so many or big, just wins. I've had wins that were, just they were, the losses,
Yeah.
wins and losses that were
Wins and
so
losses.
foundational. Our whole career at UVA, we always wanted to beat UNC in soccer. We lost them every year. And we got so close and we were always optimistic. And just physical, the training was just so hard.
Yeah.
But you become you. I remember after sports having a hard time understanding why anybody would do fitness. I only associated fitness with going out and playing a sport like that. Like who would ever want to do fitness for fun? I remember thinking you only do it so that you can play for, 120 minutes or whatever it is. Like that's the only reason you would ever do fitness. And then I did adjust to that.
Yeah. No, I hear you because I know even for me now to find something, I need to be able to compete in it. It's just
Hmm.
like I think once you're a competitor, always a competitor, and I love that about tennis. But I want to circle back to, what that coach said to you. And what an amazing mentor. Because I remember hearing it, and this didn't apply to sports, but it was more of a mindset thing. But I remember in fifth grade, I had a teacher, and it was an art teacher, and I remember being so proud of this piece of art, this assignment that she gave us. And I showed the teacher, and I was so proud of it. And she looked at it and she just said, "That's terrible,"
Oh my
and
God.
walked away, right?
What
So what
can
do you
you,
think happened?
yeah,
Up until COVID, I never picked up a paintbrush.
right.
Right. And now it's something that
Hmm.
I've always wanted to explore, but I didn't do that because of that. But that mentor saying to you, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
Like he could have phrased that a million other ways that would have been detrimental for
Yeah.
the growth of your mind as a child, because so often coaches say things to kids. But that was really brilliant. And how awesome that you had that coach as a mentor to really
Oh yeah.
teach you that like you can be good, but sometimes it's not good enough. And that's okay to say that,
Hmm.
right? Because you have
Yeah.
to be better if you want to be competitive in your sport.
Yeah. I feel like in the generation that I played sports in, we got really, really tough feedback, and I thought it was great. I really felt like, and I feel like they've shifted so much to trying to be more positive, and I feel like it's a shame because I feel like in their attempt to be positive, they're losing truth. And
Right.
I think kids can handle it, and I think adults can handle it, and I think everyone needs to hear the truth so they can grow. And when
Yeah.
you tell people the truth, they get more accustomed to it and they actually make better change. And so I do feel like, I mean, I think that the top competitors, I mean, I have a daughter who's playing Division 1 lacrosse right now, and she definitely heard the truth. Like, but I helped her get the truth. I would go to coaches and say, let's hear the truth on this. And then
Yeah.
they'd be hesitant because they'd be afraid. And I'd say, don't worry, like, I want to hear it. And then I'd translate it to her and she'd be like, okay, let's do this, Um,
Yeah.
but I think that can be a real danger today. I mean, I think, and I think what happened with the artwork was just so sad because it wasn't a passion, it was something that you would drop. Like when the coach at the other Olympic camp told me I wasn't good enough, I wasn't going to drop soccer because I loved it too much.
Right.
I was just going to try to work harder.
Right.
But it's in those other things, it's really sad because
Yeah.
then you just let it go. And that's really, it's disappointing.
Yeah. It is what it is. And you learn and you grow and, to go back to what you were saying before, hearing the truth,
Yeah.
because so often things are overly sugar coated. And what you don't want to have happen, because when I was coaching figure skating, I would hear other coaches, I would overhear the conversations with the parents. Oh yes, if you stick with me, we'll little Susie, she'll definitely make it to US nationals. And I'm like, ugh, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's like, you don't want to do that, because
Yeah.
then you've got a kid who, yes, you want to believe that you can do it and you want to have those. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, there are going to be athletes who just don't have what it takes to make it at that. And don't you think that's important to know? You wouldn't say, I
I
wouldn't
think
say to
what's
them,
important to know is to always level set everyone exactly where they are.
right,
And
right,
let them, and because what we've seen, even from studying a lot of athletes, is that people are surprised. I mean, there are a lot of the most famous tennis players nobody thought would go anywhere.
exactly.
And then they became the most famous tennis player in the world. So I think that, and it's sometimes very hard to predict, and who someone is at 15, 16, 17 can
That's
change,
right.
21, who knows? And 10, they could start out hot. And so it's really in their hands. But I think what's important, and this is what we do in corporate America, is we level set and tell people the truth. And by telling them the
Right.
truth, they get a chance to really see where they stand. And it's
Well, and
something
if,
that we're missing right now, I feel like, in society, is people have gotten away from saying where people really stand. And so there's a lot of
yeah,
confusion. And in sports, they're getting money to be told they're great. So like then they keep their businesses going. So it like in our world, we didn't pay for play, or pay for, play to pay or whatever it is. We didn't do that. You just got cut.
yeah,
You got cut or they made the team, that was it.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because you need to give the athletes an idea. Okay, this is your goal. Maybe today you don't have what it takes, but this is what you need to do to get there, instead of
Yeah. Yeah.
giving
Level
them these
set. This is
broken.
where you are. If you
Right,
want this, you have to do this, this, and this, and then you'll be going to be closer. I mean, when I was taking my daughter through the Division 1 lacrosse process, it was the same thing. It was like she was here, and they were like, if she wants to get recruited at this level, she's gotta do all these things. She's only here, and they're
right,
kids who are here, And so
right.
okay, what are the things she needs to do? This, this, and this. Then, some kids are going to do it, some kids aren't. Then that's in their hands,
Yeah,
And then,
yeah, for sure.
you can get to there and meet those other kids, and then you start going further because you keep doing it, and the other kids don't. I mean, it's always a game changing.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right. Last thing I want to talk about, Liz, is in your bio on your website, you talk about how you have developed powerful models that are built upon the most current research on how people perform best.
Oh wait,
And
can I
that, and
stop? Can
you,
I stop you 1 second? Sorry. One
please.
thing you asked me about discomfort and pain and physical pain. I ran the New York Marathon without training. That would definitely fall in that category. Yeah. I don't know why I didn't think of that, because I was thinking about sports. I was like, I don't know. It was always hard, physically hard. I ran the New York Marathon with zero training. Not kidding. This is not a joke. I got into the marathon. My friend was going to run with his girlfriend and on a Wednesday, she said, "I'm sick and I can't run it." And the race was on Sunday, and he was going to propose to her in the race. And he was one of my roommates, and I lived with like 4 people in New York City. And I said, "Okay, I'll run it with you." And I just moved from Aspen to New York in August. So now it's November 1st. And he's like, "Have you lost your mind?" And I was like, "I don't know. Let's just see how it goes." And I called a friend of mine who's a trainer in Aspen. And I said, what do I do? Well, at first I went out and ran the big loop in the park and I got sore. That's on Thursday. Then she said, okay, just start eating. She said, start eating. There's nothing you can do. There's like nothing you can do except for eat. She said, start eating and carbo load until Saturday at noon. So I just ate everything in front of me. And I was like, oh my God, I really have to run now. And she said, stop eating at noon on Saturday and then light dinner and like nothing for breakfast. And then just good luck. And so I got into the race and I was running the race and I was going over the Verrazano Bridge, which is the start. And it's like going up a mountain. And I thought I was going to die. I didn't even think I'd get over the first bridge. And then we ran through Brooklyn and it was like kind of fun. And then getting close to the end of Brooklyn, I was getting really tired and I was like, I want to go home now. I've ran 13 miles. This is good enough. But I couldn't go home because I had no money. So I had to keep running. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to run to Manhattan. And then that's it. And then I ran to Manhattan, which was 16 miles, furthest I've ever run in my whole life. And I got onto First Avenue and everyone was like, go, and I had written on my shirt, go naked, because I thought it was funny because everyone's like, go Liz. Mine said, go naked. So everybody was cheering for me because I had go naked. And then I ran to Harlem by mistake because I got so excited on First Avenue. And then I had the same problem. I couldn't quit because I was in Harlem and I had no way of getting home. So now it was like, nobody's there. And I'm like dying. And I come back into the park and I got into the park and I started to walk. And like, there were probably 4 miles left. But 4 miles it was like 100 to me.
Mm-hmm.
Everything hurt. I mean, literally I'd done no training. Okay. Everything, I was dying. And this guy came up to me, I knew from high school, ran into me and said, finish the race with me. He said, finish the race with me. Wow. He said, I heard you were running this because it was like going around like wildfire. He said, I heard you were running this and you've got to finish the race with me. And I started moving again because I was about to die in the pavement and I'd still be in that place in Central Park right now had I not moved. And I finished the race. And it was a really interesting experience for a number of reasons. One is finishing made all the difference. And that was fascinating. It was definitely a test of life because I feel like in the race of life, you have like all these ups and like, wow, this is great. All these downs. Right. And then all these gifts that come along that help you through. Right. And it was like the First Avenue gift with the people cheering. It was my partner running with me at the beginning and pacing me. It was the guy at the end who came along. Right. And there are all these things that help you, go get to the end and then just staying in the race, and not quitting. Really, it was pretty life-changing actually. And I had no anticipation. I just thought of this random thing I was doing. And it ended up being really life-changing because I was like, wow, if I can do that, I can probably do anything. But I also knew I did not do it alone. I never could have done it alone. Never.
Yeah.
And that's kind of life. You can't really do it alone. Like,
yeah.
It's like you got to stay in the race. You got to finish. And you got to take the gifts as you go. Be really grateful. So it was really great.
I was wondering about that because I did the Marine Corps Marathon.
Oh,
but God. I trained for it. So when you said I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like that was some of the hardest training. Yeah. And again, when I did the Marine Corps Marathon, it was in 2006 and I did it through Team in Training with Leukemia Lymphoma Society. And anybody out there listening, if you want to run a marathon or a half marathon, Team in Training has such an amazing organization if they have a local chapter near you. Because for me, every weekend in the DC metro area, I had 100 people to run with.
Wow.
Every weekend to train leading up to the marathon. So but I use that, Liz, to this day. Anytime I'm faced with something, I'm like, you know what? I ran a marathon. Yeah. And it was the only one I did. I mean, I see you ran, you were a glutton for punishment and wanted to do it a second time.
I know. I did it again then. I don't even understand. I was like trying to up my time and I didn't train the second time either. It was like, I didn't train the first time. These are the bad decisions of your 20s. That's what that reflects. But it was really, I will say I was not expecting anything from it. And it was actually a life-changing thing. Yeah. I mean, what it is essentially is like doing hard things. When you do really
Yeah.
hard
It's just
things, you
doing
build
hard things.
confidence. And it was a psychological race, not a physical race,
Yes. I
So
kind of felt that like that anyway, except I was trained and you weren't.
yeah, yeah.
So when you go into a marathon and you're trained, because most marathon training models, you really only run 20 miles and then, you never really run the full length. But it became a mental game,
Yeah,
to finish it. It was a mental
yeah,
game for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
especially you didn't even want to quit at 13, 16, 18. I mean, I wanted to quit at every mile mark that I just couldn't. I was like, I don't know how to get home. I mean, I just might as well just keep running. I was like,
That's
well, I'm going to
hysterical.
follow these people, because I didn't have like a subway card or something. Like, I had no money. Like, it wasn't like that time. It was like a different era. It's just like, I don't know what else to do here.
And you probably didn't have a cell phone yet either, did
No,
you?
God, no. There was no cell phone. So, anyway, but all those things, I think what's important is that, doing hard things. And this is what, again, another thing I think we lose sometimes in our life is that doing hard things really builds character, and it really builds confidence. And that is life
Yeah.
changing,
Yeah.
and when you're doing hard things, a lot of times you want to quit those hard things because they're hard,
Yeah.
and it's hard, especially as an adult, it's really hard to do hard things. So, and I find I've had this with a lot of executives I coach. They're very good at doing physical hard things, but they're not good at doing emotional hard things.
Yeah.
And that's like really in your life, you got to do the emotionally hard things.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So I wanted to ask you
Yeah.
just about, you talk about, and I lost it now on your thing, on your bio.
You mean it's the model that we go off of for
Yes.
how we do our business. So it's 3-tiered
Yeah.
model on
Okay.
human behavior, business
Okay.
acumen, and sports performance.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And you had said in your bio that everything that you do is based on research, and you use that to model the work that you do in your company. Can you just explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, a lot of the research is the research I'm doing. So I'm spent 20,000 hours talking to people. I mean, for 15 years, I've talked to people all day, every day, all over the country, all ages, males, females, you name it. And you start to see human behavior trends. And then we read studies and follow different gurus within reason, but you start to see all these trends and all these patterns and all of these things emerging from just talking to so many different people and studying their story and figuring out how to move them. And the way we move people is through this 3-prong approach of understanding humans, like understanding their personalities and their behaviors and how they emerge and what they do in communication, stress, conflict, all of that. And then through studying their business and helping them figure out how that applies to performing in the workplace. And then with the sports performance model, it's like, all the great things that we get from sports, like feedback and, mindset and physical and emotional strength and reps and practice, like a lot of reps, like, you do so many reps in sports to get good. You got to do a lot of reps as an adult to get good. We talk about reps all the time, like, just to handle focus, handle actually a lot around focus because people really struggle with focus. So anyway, and a lot of different ways that we get people really leveling up their lives.
Leveling up
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. All right, Liz, this has been such an amazing conversation. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
That's a really good question. I'm sure I'm going to come up with so many sporting scenarios after, but
It's all good.
Yeah,
We've talked about so many different things.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Yeah.
it's been
Yeah,
really
I
great
think the only thing
conversation.
I'd say, and I think this applies no matter everywhere, and I say it all the time, is the only person you meet is the person in the mirror. That's
Yeah.
it. And I always say to my clients, you know what you look like in your full potential, and you're the one who knows when you're not living into it. And you're the only one that you have anything to prove to, and you're going to be your toughest critic. So always show up to that person in the mirror. because
I
they're
love
the
it.
one that's, deciding everything for you. And you think
For
it's everyone
sure.
else, and everyone else's opinion. It's not. It's that person in the mirror's opinion.
Well, yeah. And that person in the mirror is going to be dictating every move that you make.
Yeah.
Because at any moment we have a choice as to how we're going to decide which way we're going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think we get really confused because I think we start to think when someone else gives us negative feedback that they're the problem, not recognizing that that negative feedback has no impact on us if we don't believe it.
That's right.
So if we believe it, then it's a real problem and we have to fix it.
Yeah.
Right.
And take a lesson from Liz Bentley that she took from hearing that statement from the Olympic trials
Yeah.
coach, or from the Olympic camp that she went to, and you use that as fuel.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I did. It was great.
that's awesome. I
Yeah.
mean, when you think about that
That
to
was life
me,
changing.
well, the outside looking in, I think that was
Mm-hmm.
just a big pivotal moment for you, because you
Yeah.
learned that you can make these changes, and you can
Yeah.
be that person that you want to be, and accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that everyone, they're just, it's just their opinion.
Yeah.
And you can, their opinion matters. It matters. But it's
Yeah.
just the opinion of a person. You can grow through it. You can develop. You can get better. You can do. And they also, you can prove them wrong.
Yeah.
All right.
I
Whatever it
love
is.
it. All right, Liz, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you to everyone listening. And yeah, take care, everyone.
All right. Thanks so much.